Hi, it's Kristen, and this is a Tackling My TBR video where I read the first books in several series. So, I have 3 books here. They're each the first book in a series, and I'm gonna just start all these series and I guess see if I want to continue by the end of the book. First up, we have Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb. This is a huge series. It's split into trilogies, I believe, but like as a whole, the series is several books long. So this is about a child named Fitz, and he is apparently despised. He's raised in the castle stables and trained to be an assassin. That is pretty much all I know. This is an incredibly popular series. Robin Hobb is an incredibly popular author. But this one is quite daunting. It's been on my shelves so long that it's like actually quite discoloured. I've heard that like either you love it or you really struggle through it. So I'm, nervous to read this one. Hopefully I like it. So that is one of the books I'm going to be reading. I'm also going to read A Natural History of Dragons, a memoir by Lady Trent by Marie Brennan. This one I've been wanting to read since I heard of it, and it just took me a long time to get around to buying it. And then I finally did last year before last perhaps. And yeah, I'm excited to read it. It's about a woman, Lady Trent, who is the world's preeminent dragon naturalist. And I really honestly don't know any more about it than that, but I thought sounded interesting, sort of historical but with a fantastical twist of dragons. That intrigued me, and I think also is similar to the other book I'm going to be reading, which is Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies by Heather Fawcett. This is about Emily Wilde, who studies fairies, and she goes on this little research trip to this sort of remote village, and she's like, I'm gonna research these fairies, I'm gonna write my book, I'm gonna write my encyclopedia, and I'm going to be very focused, etc. And then Wendell Bambleby, who is another researcher that she knows from back home, shows up and is like, I'm also going to research these fairies. And they have a very friendly rivalry kind of relationship, which is obviously going to turn into a romantic relationship. I've just heard very cute things about it. It's obviously popped off a lot in the past couple of years as a cozy fantasy romance kind of book. So yeah, I have these 3. I feel like they're all in a very similar colour scheme. A lot of creamy beige going on. So yes, this is a trilogy. Emily Wilde. Lady Trent, I want to say there are 5 or 6 books. And then this is book 1 in the Farseer trilogy, but within the world of Fitz, etc. There are tons of books. So if I like this, I could always just read the trilogy. If I get really into it, I could read more. I don't know that I have the shelf space for it, but these are all books that have been sat on my TBR for quite a while, and I'm just gonna get into them, see if I want to continue on in the series, and one way or another, I feel like it's gonna decide whether I continue on or whether I don't and I unhaul these. So yes, these are the 3 series I will be starting. Let's see how I like it. I think I'm going to start with Emily Wilde because I want something cute and cozy to get into initially. So let's go. So an update with where I'm at with Emily Wilde. I've been reading this way slower than I thought I would, but that doesn't mean I'm not enjoying it. It took me a little bit to get into it, but I feel like once Wendell was introduced as a character and you got more of Emily like interacting with other people, then I was more interested. It's like not exactly what I was expecting in some ways, but in other ways it is what I was expecting. That doesn't really help as an explanation. I like Emily as a character. She's very like to the point, doesn't really like care what other people think of her. She's not great at like socializing, but I quite like that. I like female characters who aren't just like nice and friendly to everyone and everyone likes them because they're so polite and sweet. So I think she is an interesting character, and she and Wendell have an interesting dynamic. They have discovered like this fairy tree, and at this point some of the villagers are actually helping them more so, now that Emily has been a bit more interactive with them and like asked for their help, and they're a bit more welcoming to her, rather than initially when she was just like, no, I'm here to like do my job and I'll pay for things, and like you don't need to take care of me, I'll just like ask for help when I need it, if I need it. But I do still want to like get information from you all. And the villagers were like, I don't know about that. But now that she's a bit like more interactive with them, they're a bit more forthcoming with her, so she's finding out like these old folk tales of the Fae in the area, and yeah, delving further into her research. And I do like the sort of world building we do have with the different types of Fae, like the common Fae and the courtly Fae, and the little bits of interactions we've had between her and Fae so far. Like there's a Fae that's sort of like haunting a house. There's a little Fae creature who she visits in like the mountains in her area where she's staying. And I think it's, yeah, just really interesting to see what like Heather Fawcett has come up with, and like borrowed from other folk tales and folk stories and stuff, in terms of like gifts that the Fae will accept, and little talismans or things that humans can use to try and like ward off certain enchantments and things like that. So yes, it is, as this is a charmingly whimsical delight. I would say it is quite charming, it is very whimsical, and I'm enjoying myself so far. I'm sort of waiting for like something to happen, like a big plot point, which is like, I don't know what the story is gonna like hinge on, but I can sort of feel that potentially coming up, so I will let you know when I get further in. So I finished Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. I just felt like this had the potential for me to love it, but I just liked it. It started off a little bit slow, getting into it, but then once I was into it, I was very into it and I was really enjoying it, and I was thinking this is gonna be like great, you know, easy 4 stars kind of thing. But then there were so many moments throughout where I was like,
that's interesting. I wish we'd learn more about that. Or that's an interesting concept. I wish she'd pushed that. Or that's a little bit of like information that I wish we got more of. And there were just sort of too many moments like that I couldn't say that I like fully loved this, because I did just feel like there was so much potential, but it often didn't follow through. So I liked Emily as a main character. I really liked Emily. I think her awkwardness was really endearing to me. Wendell, I felt like I could have loved. There were elements to his character, or like certain things he'd say that I'd be like, oh, I love that particular sentence that he said, or I like their dynamic, but I wanted a bit more. And perhaps if this had been like a slower burn, maybe if we'd got some more development, because, you know, he's like confessing his love and sort of making marriage proposals, but like not too long ago he was bringing a string of women through their cottage. So like, I don't know that I can fully invest in your I love you, I've always loved you, if in front of her you've been like sleeping with numerous other people. So yeah, I liked some of the world building, but again felt it could have been pushed further. I liked the idea of like common fae, courtly fae, but again wanted to see more of that. Every time they said the courtly fae were like big threats, I never really actually felt the danger when they were in these circumstances, because they seemed to like get out of things in a way that seemed easier than I was being told it should be. So I just feel quite like iffy about this book. I don't know if I didn't feel the like threat or the danger because it's all told in like journal entries. So we're being told after the fact of something happening. Obviously Emily is writing these journal entries, so I know that in her recounting what's just happened, nothing too bad happens to her, because she's obviously okay enough to be writing these things and telling us what happened. And I know that there are moments of like Wendell actually had to like fight and kill another fairy, or like they did have to do this challenging thing. But for the fae are so dangerous and they'll manipulate you and trick you and kidnap you and hold you hostage and you'll be driven mad and all that sort of stuff. We see bits of it, but when it happens to our main characters, it doesn't feel like they ever have to do anything too much to get out of these circumstances. So yeah, I just don't know that I ever really felt the presence of like much threat. And again, you could argue like, well, no, it's supposed to be a cozy fantasy, so it's supposed to be like whimsical and fun and sweet and not too like dark or horrific or anything like that. And I get that. So like, you can take my issues with it with a grain of salt, and you can say, well, no, that's not the intention, that's not what it's meant to be, so that's why it isn't like that. And I completely understand that. So, and I don't want to say that like maybe cozy fantasy is just not for me then, because I like not really read much cozy fantasy, and I did still like this, but I just, yeah, there were elements that I was just like, I wish that was more, I wish that was more, I wish that was pushed further, I wish this was delved into a bit more, and that just more had been done with it. And I know that there are sequels, so like the world building can continue in those, the relationship dynamic can be like further progressed in those, and I am interested to read them. but I don't know that I'll like purchase them full price. If I do purchase them, I'll look into like library, or if I see them in like charity shops, I'll definitely keep my eye out, or for any like deals or anything. So I am definitely interested in continuing with the next two books because it's just a trilogy and I enjoyed it enough that I would continue with these characters. Like I said, I really liked Emily herself. And I want to know more about like the Fae. So enjoyable, but not, I didn't love it as much as I thought I would, which is a bit of a shame, but I'm still glad I read it and it's so beautiful and it matches my nails. So yes, glad I read it. Wish I'd loved it a bit more than I actually did, but will definitely still continue on with the series. On to the next book.
So I've moved on to the next book for this video, which is A Natural History of Dragons, a memoir by Lady Trent by Marie Brennan. This I've not yet like filmed an update for, but I'm actually over halfway into the book because I've been really enjoying it and also haven't had a chance to film an update for a little while. This is about a woman named Isabella who, as a young girl, is really interested in dragons, but she, within like the confines of society, should not be pursuing this interest because it's, you know, for scholars and scientists and men to be interested in, but not for a lady. So she, for a while, like gives up her interest in this subject and is like, okay, well, I'm going to learn to be a lady and I'm going to, you know, find a husband, blah, blah, blah. But then as a older teen young woman, she sees some dragons at an exhibition and her interest is renewed and she meets some interesting people and she like really regains an enthusiasm for the topic and remembers like why she was always interested in learning about dragons and their anatomy and all that kind of stuff. And she convinces her husband to convince a lord who was going on a trip to a place called Ristrana to research dragons, to bring them along with him on this trip. And she says, you know, I'll be your secretary, I'll just be there to like file your notes and like I've improved as like an artist, so I'm just like I can draw things, so like I'll be useful but I won't like get too involved. And so they've gone on this trip. I really like Isabella as a main character. I think she's very clever. She like really sticks to her guns about like what she wants and how she can like twist a situation to suit herself. I just think she's a lot of fun, very strong. This is told as like her as an old lady looking back on her life and writing her memoirs. And so you do get a few like insights from her as an older woman reflecting on the past, as well as just like the narrative of her as a young woman. And I'm really enjoying it. And because of that, it does remind me of Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, because that is told in like diary format as she's on this trip, and this is told in a memoir format of a trip she's taken. So I do see the similarities there. And while I felt like a slight disconnect at points in Emily Wilde, I don't feel that with this, which I'm happy about. This one, even though it can be, I guess, slow at times, where there are points where like not a ton is happening in here because they're just traveling, researching, working out what to do next, investigating. So things are happening, but there's not a ton of action throughout. And so points do feel a bit slow. I don't think it is uninteresting. Whereas there are points in Emily Wilde where it felt a bit slow and I was like, let's get to the next thing, like what's actually happening here, let's progress things. I would say this has the same, like, not issue, because I don't find it an issue in this one. So I think it's just like the way it's written I prefer in this book. I do think you could really compare those two books. And for me, this one is stronger. So I've reached part 3, which says, in which scientific progress is made despite the obstacle of a demon from the ancient past. So yeah, I'm liking it so far. I'm finding it interesting. I like the world building and like the little bits of world building that are building up throughout, that gives like a sense of a world that's like familiar to ours, in that it's got a very sort of, I guess, like Victorian England kind of setting, with them then traveling out, but everything is named differently and it is very much like a fantasy version of that kind of setting, which I like. My singular issue with this so far is that her like love interest husband character has the same name as my brother, so I have to get past that on the occasional sentence. But that's really like my only issue. I'm really looking forward to continuing with this and seeing what they're going to discover, what happens, and what Lady Trent gets up to next. So I finished reading A Natural History of Dragons, a memoir by Lady Trent by Marie Brennan. I really liked this one. I had a lot of fun with it. It does have its like more serious moments. I quite like Isabella as a character, but when I put that I'd finish this on Goodreads, I saw a couple of reviews that were like, she's very unlikable. And she does like have her moments, and there are some things she has to reckon with, and I think will potentially be explored further in future books, because this is book 1 in a series, to do with like classism, and she always sees herself as like in like not the best position when going on like expeditions, etc., and like trying to be scholarly because she is a woman and she's surrounded by men, and she thinks like men won't respect her or they won't involve her in things because she is a woman, which she's completely right about. But then there are moments where she does like recognize that actually in certain situations she maybe is in a better position than other men because she is a gentleman's daughter, she's a gentleman's wife. So in terms of like class in society, she is in a better position than men who have had to like get themselves to the position they are in, and who are often not included or looked down upon by other men in society because they're not of the same social class. So I do think like we get some of that more towards the end, and I do think potentially that will follow through into other books, especially with Isabella's relationship with Mr. Williker, because I think that is an interesting dynamic that I would be interested in reading more about. Generally, I like her as a main character. I think she's interesting. I just love how like into her studies she is, and how much she loves research, and like how passionate she is about things that she is interested in. And I think that's always a great like character trait. Like if I believe that this character actually cares about the thing that they are like constantly referring to and talking about, then you've sold me on that character to some degree, like from the get-go. So before I was saying how there wasn't like a ton going on, it was just like these characters researching and theorizing, and that was interesting. That did keep me engaged. But we do get to a point where there is like a mystery going on of what exactly is happening in this village with the dragons. Why are dragons attacking people when they previously maybe didn't? Why are like things happening around the village or showing up around the village? Like what is actually going on, that Isabella and Jacob and Mr. Wilker and Lord Hilford all get like pulled into, and they have to like investigate to some degree, and they're coming up with theories of what's going on. And I did enjoy that aspect. And there is something that happens at the end that I didn't necessarily expect to happen like in this book. I knew something had to happen at some point, just based on what we know about Isabella and her like talking about her past from a position she's obviously in the points where she's reflecting. But I didn't necessarily think it would happen in this book. But I do think it is gonna create an interesting point for Isabella's character to come from, to like grow from, to learn from, and like see how it affects her in future books. I definitely will be continuing on with the series because I did enjoy this, and I want to read more about her adventures, because she does reference future things that happen. She'll be like, oh, this thing that was going on in this book reminds me of like this other thing, but I'm not going to tell you about that right now because I'm talking about my time in Vistrana. So I am interested to hear more about her adventures and see what she got up to. So yeah, really liked this one. I would give it, I think, like maybe like a 4-star, or like a very high 3-star, like a 3.75, because there were some points where I found it a bit slow and some points where certain characters annoyed me a bit, but like not too badly. So yeah, definitely want to read more and hope that like the series gets even better as it goes on. On to the next book. So I've moved on to the last book of the vlog, which is Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb. So this is about a young boy called Fitz who's brought into this world of kings and princes and living in this like castle keep, which he is not used to. He was born into like a farming family, I think, because of circumstances. He has his whole like world shifted. At the beginning of this, he is put into this new world and he's having to learn the way of things. We have him interact mostly with a character called Burrich or Burrick, who like looks after the horses and the hounds, and he like has sort of a protectiveness and tenderness towards Fitz, but at the same time is like quite harsh. And so he looks after him for several years until Fitz is brought by the king into a different position where he is going to learn some new skills, as indicated by the title of the book. And that's like mostly what I've had so far. I'm 132 pages in, which is partway through a chapter. And yeah,
that's what I've had so far. His childhood, him learning about the sort of new area he's living in, him being put in this new position and learning new things. And now he has been sent on his first like mission that he has to undertake. And that's basically where I've left off. They've arrived at the keep that they are visiting, and he may or may not have to do something quite serious depending on how this like diplomacy mission goes. This is a bit of a funny one in that I found it quite a slow start, and the whole thing has felt quite slow as I've been reading. But when I am reading it, I do feel like very immersed in the world that Robin Hobb has created. And I am like very interested and intrigued by characters and their interactions and like their purpose or what they may do in the future. And yeah, I'm enjoying that. I'm intrigued to see where the story goes. I think Fitz is an interesting character, you know, following him from when he's so young. We're really like on this journey with him. So I do like that sort of perspective that we're getting. But yeah, considering I'm 130 or so pages in, it's one of those books that like, I feel like a lot has happened, but more of in a like character progression, getting the characters to where they need to be kind of way, not in a lots of action has happened kind of way. So it's slow, things have happened, but also, I don't know, I'm sort of waiting for something more to happen. It's not like gripped me, like I can't put it down, but I am very immersed in it when I'm reading it. I will see how I get on, but I am enjoying it, and I will update you when like potentially something else has happened. Back for another update, I think in the same place I did my last update of this book. And honestly, I don't know that I have a ton else new to say. I'm still reading Assassin's Apprentice. I've been reading this for like a month now, and it's just taking me so long to get through it. And it's not a bad book. Like, I'm enjoying it when I'm reading it, but when I'm not reading it, I have no like impetus to pick it up. Like, I'm just not that bothered about picking it up, which kind of sucks because like, yeah, it's weird. I am enjoying it while I'm reading it, but I'm finding it very slow, and it's taking me a long time to get through it. So like, I'm just, every time I think about picking it up, I'm like, ugh, I kind of want to be reading something else. And that makes it sound like I'm just not enjoying it, but that's not true, because I am interested. I'm interested in the character. I like Fitz. I'm interested to see where his journey goes. I think partially it's the long chapters, and that sounds like such a like pathetic reason to be struggling with this, but as I've said many times on my channel before, I am a short chapter enjoyer, and I find reading books with short chapters much easier to get through, even if I don't necessarily like the book that much. If it's short chapters, I feel like it's snappy. I'm getting through it because I'm going, just one more chapter. This chapter's only 5 pages long. Okay, I can get through that in the next 5 to 10 minutes. Or the next chapter's like a page. I'll read that before bed. Whereas this one, with every chapter being like at least 20 pages long, it's a bit like I have to commit time. And I'm not someone who tends to like want to stop mid chapter, but I have been with this book because sometimes I'm like, I don't have the time to sit here and read a whole chapter. But like, I do want to be getting through this. And at one point, I was just thinking, or maybe I'm just in a reading slump generally, because I had a really successful reading month in March. So I was like, maybe I'm struggling to get through this in April because I've just like read a lot recently and I'm just like a bit done at the moment with reading. But then I had to read a book for my book club for my April meetup. And I was like halfway through this book and I did put it down in order to read the other book. And I whizzed through that other book and I had such a fun time reading and I was really enjoying myself and enjoying the experience of reading. And I, got through it in like a day and a half. So that I think showed I wasn't just in a reading slump and it was this book that I was struggling through. I don't know how to explain how I feel about this book, but still reiterate the fact that like I don't dislike it. I do find it interesting. I do find the relationships interesting and like Fitz and Burrick and Fitz and Chade and the dynamics of like the princes and the royal family generally and how that all like goes together and the sort of odd magic skill thing that's going on and the forged people. So like there is a lot going on, but it's happened quite slowly and like within the context of the novel, like over time, because we've really seen Fitz grow from a small child to a teenager. So it feels quite drawn out and there is like a lot of info given. So I don't know if it's just because like it's learning a new fantasy world and this very much feels like a first book where we are like setting things up. That's another reason why it feels a bit slower. But I'm not enjoying it. I don't I don't know. I'm not enjoying the process of reading it, but I am enjoying the book itself, if that makes sense. I feel like it doesn't. And people would just see this and go, well, if you're having a hard time reading it and you're not like that invested, etc., just DNF. But like at this point, I'm closer to the end than I am to the beginning. And I've had this on my TBR for so long and like I am determined to finish it. So I feel like I just need a couple of days where I'm not doing anything to like really just get into it and get these last like 100 pages, just over 100 pages read so I can be done with it. This doesn't sound very promising in terms of like continuing on with this series, but I do think because it is like technically a trilogy with like then more spin-offs and sequels, etc. afterwards, I do think I would finish the trilogy, but I don't think I'd buy them. That's how I'm feeling right now. And also my thing is, because like this is, I think, the shortest book. I don't know if it's the shortest in the whole series, but I'm pretty sure that after this, like generally the books get bigger. So if I'm like taking a month to read a like just under 400 page book, how long is it going to take me to read one that's like another 200 pages or twice the size, you know? But I am going to finish this. and I'm going to give you my thoughts on like more of like the actual story at the end. I feel like I'm at a point where there is a bit of like tension going on, and like Fitz having to be very active because he is in like one place and something potentially has happened in another place, and it's this thing of like, is he going to get back? What exactly has happened that he's like felt or sensed or like dreamt, or like through a connection he has. And so when I was reading that last night, I was like, ooh, what is going on? What's going to happen? And I was reading that quite quickly in comparison to everything else. So if it keeps that energy throughout now, maybe I'll actually get through this. I'll update you when I'm done.
I finally finished reading Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb. It took me just over a month to do it, which would make you think that I didn't like it. But I did. It just... it was slow going in some parts, especially where we were given a lot of information in one go, like learning new information. But I read the last like 100 pages quite quickly, which is sort of frustrating because I managed to do that in like 2 days, considering the rest of the book took me so long. But when the action picks up, and especially at the end when there's a lot of like political intrigue and like the characters plotting is coming to the forefront, and like, is this character gonna die, what's this character up to, when all those like bits come together, I was reading it quite fast because I was like very interested in how Fitz was gonna get out of this, what he was gonna do, and all of that kind of stuff. So the ending went quite quickly for me because I wanted to know what was going to happen and what exactly was going on, etc. That being said, I feel like there's part of it that's supposed to be maybe a reveal. It's almost written as if it's a reveal, but I don't know, because I feel like it was obvious as soon as a character was like introduced the first time round, like who they were or like their relationship to another character. But maybe it's not supposed to be a reveal. I liked Fitz as a character. I really liked his relationships between like him and Shade, him and Verity, him and Boic. Those were the most like interesting dynamics to me. And I do like that this book obviously like sets up for other books, because we have the whole Red Ship Raiders plot, which isn't like finished, isn't dealt with in this book, but that a lot of the other plots of like so-and-so scheming behind another character's back is sort of wrapped up in here, or enough like loose ends are tied up by the end of this book that like I wouldn't feel dissatisfied if this was the only book I read. But also that those character dynamics, obviously having been set up in this book, could be really interesting going forward, but they do feel like a complete plot in this one book, with like more if you're intrigued to read more, which I think I will. Like I said, I'm interested. I like Fitz. I like his dynamic with certain other characters. So I would be intrigued to read more, and I would hope that like maybe now I'm in this world and I know about it, that it wouldn't take me as much to get into a second or third book, because I already have some background from reading this one. So it wouldn't feel like I was, taking in so much new information. So I definitely think I would read the rest of the Farseer trilogy. Don't know if I would then go on to read like the whole thing, maybe at that point I would have like fallen in love with it so much more and want to continue. But I do think I would at least finish off the Farseer trilogy, because yeah, I kind of want to see what happens with the Red Ship Raiders and like the Forged ones, etc. So yeah, would be intrigued to read books 2 and 3 in this trilogy. But I'm very like iffy on whether I would buy them or not. I think like if I happened to see them in like a charity shop or on some sort of like deal in a bookshop, I might buy them, but I might just look for them in the library instead. I think maybe I'd like get the second one from the library, see how I like that one, and if I do like that one, maybe I'd then buy book 2 and book 3 just so I have the Farseer trilogy in my possession. So yes, that is it for this vlog of reading first books in series. I was slightly disappointed in Emily Wilde because I thought I would love it more than I did. And I do think I would continue the series, but I don't know that I would buy them again unless I saw them like very cheap in a charity shop. But I do sort of want to finish the trilogy. So would continue reading, but don't feel the need to purchase. Then A Natural History of Dragons, Memoir of Lady Trent, I liked more than Emily Wilde. I think there's lots of comparisons you can draw between the two. This one, I think I would purchase the other books in the series. I actually saw the second book in a bookshop the other day and like almost bought it. But the copy they had was like slightly damaged, so I didn't want to buy a damaged copy, so I didn't end up getting it. Had a lot of fun with this one. It was simple and like cozy-ish, but with more like actual danger feeling than Emily Wilde. So we'll definitely continue on in this series. And then liked this one, didn't like how long it took me to read it, but that's a me problem. I think if I had at points just forced myself to sit down and read it, then I could have got through it quicker, as evidenced by me finishing it quite quickly once I was in the last like 100 pages. But again, would continue with this, unsure whether I'd buy it or not. I think if I give the second book a go, like I said, then I'll see if I would continue purchasing the books. But there we have it, the very similar colour scheme books. I liked them all to varying degrees, glad I finally got to them all, would continue them all, but wouldn't necessarily purchase the rest of the series. So that is it. Have you read any of these? Do you think they're worth continuing on with? Do let me know in the comments below. Thank you for watching this Tackling My TBR video, and I will see you soon with another one. Bye!